So welcome
Thank you.
to the Town Hall. And I'm going to start by, first of all, thanking you for the past 4 seasons of Veep because it is the great joy of my week when it's on.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you please do 52 episodes a year?
Under no circumstances is that going to happen. I would die.
And the 5th season, which I got to see the first few episodes of, is really extraordinary. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't be hyping it because I have affection for you in this show. But it is hilarious.
Thank you.
It really is. Like
Thank
you
you.
seem to have even though you have a new showrunner and everything, you've really you've reached some kind of new level.
Thanks. That's really kind of you to say. And I'm very excited about this season coming up. I really am. I wouldn't be here otherwise, to tell you the truth. I will not bullshit you. I'm really excited. I think this is, we're on to something good. And we found new territory. Season 5 begins about 8 hours after season 4 ended, which is kind of cool. And it's going to end on Inauguration Day. So we have these we're on a real timeline, and a lot is packed into those 10 episodes.
So for anybody who hasn't seen it or just needs a refresher from season 4, your character is Selena Meyer.
Yes.
We met her a few seasons back when she was the vice president of the United States.
Right.
Then she became president.
She became president at the end of season 3. That is correct.
And then had to run for president.
Yes, she became president because her president, President Hughes, resigned. And his wife had some sort of nervous breakdown. Nobody cares. And and then Selena Meyer becomes President Meyer in season 4, but it's the last 8 months of his presidency, and so now her presidency. So she really has to campaign and make some sort of legacy for herself in an 8-month period, which is obviously somewhat impossible. And success and seems to elude her. Even when it's within her grasp, it's not quite there.
Always. And you love Selena, but you want it to elude her because she's a terrible person.
She's a heinous individual, and yet I love her profoundly.
So at the end of last season, there was an election. It's a Bush Gore situation where there's not a runoff, but
not quite Bush Gore because there's an electoral tie, and so that's where we're left. At the end of season 4. And we begin trying to deal with this electoral tie, which is somewhat unprecedented. It has happened twice in American history, but quite a long time ago. And please don't ask me. I can't now remember. But I mean like over 100 years ago or even longer. So anyway, so she's having to deal with that. Yeah.
When you've had a success like Veep, what kind of pressure do you have going into a new season when you're probably at home in LA and you start getting scripts, right?
Yeah. Well, even before scripts, it's ideas. We're talking about ideas and where we're headed. I won't lie to you. The pressure is rather intense, but it's really pressure I put on myself. We put on ourselves because we've put our heart and soul into telling these stories, and we've worked very hard at it. And so, I don't know, you want to protect it moving forward, to be honest. And so there's always this feeling of, we don't want to f it up. We want to keep our precious thing going. And so we take our comedy very seriously. Let's put it that way.
Because it must excite you as someone who's, producing a show and starring in a show that the real life American politics has become so insane.
It's nuts. And I've said it before, but when we began Veep, we thought it was a sort of political satire, and now it feels more like a somber documentary. But it's pretty wild out there right now, particularly with all this contested convention stuff. And
I know it really is funny that you're having.
It's wild, right?
That Selena Meyer is going through what she's going through, while particularly the Republicans are going through what they're going through,
completely
even going into the convention.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, even. Well, anyway, it's such a wild and woolly time in reality. So, but the good news, I think, for us is that, in a way, is that we've created an alternate universe on Veep. So we are not parodying any one person, politician. We never have. We don't even really identify parties. We try to keep it, we just say the other side or the other party. And I think that's helping us. I mean, I know it's been great in the past, but I think particularly now with everything so charged, it's even better because it lets everybody then can be in on this joke. This is a non-partisan show.
I wanted to just to illustrate the weird relevance of this show right now. I want to play this quick little game with the audience, and you can chime in too, but I think you know the answers.
Oh, okay.
Who said it? A Veep character or an actual presidential candidate?
Oh, fun.
Guess what? I just went to a wedding of a friend of mine who happens to be gay. Who said it? Veep character, presidential candidate. Right. I really hope we don't see yoga on this stage. That's right. They're very good. This audience is very shy.
This is incredible. Yeah, they're Veep fans.
Political junkies.
Or they're
and Veep
political junkies.
If you want to get some cardio exercise, you have to have a heart.
That's got to be a Veep.
Yeah, that was Selena Meyer. Let's see. You may have seen I recently launched a Snapchat account. I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves.
Hell,
yeah, you're right. Okay.
And thank you for playing.
Any of those.
What if they won? What if they won?
Any of those could have been Selena Meyer.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about growing up and when you decided to become a performer, but you spent a lot of your formative years in Washington, D.C.
Yes, I did. I moved there when I was about 8 years old, and I grew up there, through high school. Yeah.
And does that inform any parts of the show? Your familiarity
Probably
with
it does. I mean, I know Washington, and I know what it's like to sort of. My parents were not in politics, but I went to school with kids who were the children of politicians, and it's a very company town. Yeah. So I know that universe for sure, and yeah. So I guess it's sort of a little bit in my bones. I don't know how else to say it, but I'm familiar with the turf. That
familiarity, and also just the weird. The one thing about Veep is that even though it's broad and is actually a satire, there's something very true about those relationships and dynamics and pecking order.
Yeah. That's based on lots of realities. We did a lot of research. I think I've told you this before, but we did a lot of research initially before, we even shot the pilot episode of Veep. And the research continues even before doing this past season. We went to DC for a week and hung out and had a gazillion meetings with so many different people. And all of that's informed the work we do. But one thing is for sure is that there is a pecking order. There's a hierarchy that is within administrations, within senatorial offices, congressional offices. I mean, it's just there, and it's this town is filled with ambitious, power-hungry people and
bullies.
Some bullies, and of course some very, not to sound too satirical and pessimistic. I think there are a lot of earnest, good people trying to do the right thing, but that's not good stuff for comedy. You need to talk about the other stuff if you're trying to be funny.
In the course of hanging out in DC for the show, who are some of the people that you've actually really enjoyed meeting and hanging out with that you might not otherwise have?
Oh, well, Joe Biden for starters. Yeah. I mean, he is just such a remarkably thoughtful and kind person.
Yeah, one of the good ones.
Yeah, really lovely man. And I've met lots of people that I've enjoyed meeting. I mean, we have consultants on the show from both sides of the aisle, people who worked in the Clinton and the Obama White House. I'm just trying to think, and also people from the Bush White House. All of them have been unbelievably helpful to us. They read the scripts, they vet the scripts for us early on to let us know what's plausible, what an area that we need to sort of tease out more from a reality point of view, and we take all of that stuff very seriously. Yeah.
How did the character of Selena Meyer? I want to ask you about several of the characters you've done on television over the years and the creation of those characters. But how did Selena Meyer come about? How did she evolve from the very first discussions about Selena to where she is now, or where she was by the time the show premiered?
Premiere? You mean the first premiere, you mean?
Yeah. I'm just the very beginnings of that character.
Well, before I even met Armando Iannucci, who's the creator of the show and has run the show the last 4 years, for the first 4 years, it was the notion of it was pitched to me as an unhappy vice president. And immediately I was like, where do I sign? I felt like this was a gold mine. It just felt like, oh my God, no one's done this. Of course, a Veep, it's perfect.
Right, it had never been done.
Yeah.
It really hadn't.
Right. And also the fact of her being a woman it's so juicy because, as an ambitious woman myself, I understand the drive. I mean, nobody aspires to the number 2 position. I mean, they just don't. And if somebody wants to get into politics and government, they never think one day I'll be vice president. It's just it's not in fantasy land. So anyway, so already I was on board, and then Armando and I met, and we hit it off immediately. And I don't know, we were just I've been involved in politics a little bit. I mean, that is to say, as a citizen. So, trying to raise awareness about certain issues or helping to campaign for certain candidates. And so, I had some familiarity with it, but his take on it was so fascinating. The sort of the warts and all idea, and the grittiness, and the not so sort of pomp and circumstance-ishness of all of it. And so we hit it off right away. And I remember very distinctly, well, 2 things. One is, I had noticed a lot that what I call the fist, that politicians make this gesture very frequently, which is sort of thumb on top of a clenched fist and thumb on top, which is a very sort of not human feeling. And
not really a fist.
Yeah.
But kind of a fist.
Yeah. And it's not finger pointing, and it's not doing this, it's this. And so we called it a fist, and we wanted to incorporate it immediately. And it's a very specific move for politicians, and they do it now. You can see them all doing it. So, and we sort of bonded in that moment, and it's sort of, it took off from there. I don't know what else to say. It's been a glorious ride.
Did Selena always have a daughter, which is one of the funniest relationships, and also horrible?
Yeah.
A horrible mother.
She's a horrible, horrible mother. It is so much fun to play her.
As a mother yourself, you must just be so happy to just enact everything that you ever stopped yourself from doing.
I have to say, I don't know where, it kind of frightens me because I don't know where some of this stuff comes from. I have the most glorious mom, and I adore her, and she's very loving, and I'd like to think that I'm a kind and good mother, but maybe I'm tapping into something that I don't realize about myself. I have no idea.
Well, maybe we're just glad you didn't have a daughter.
Yes, or maybe that. That's right. I have 2 boys. And, they major league dodged a bullet. But anyway, she didn't have we hadn't established her daughter in the first episode, but we did that first season. And I just love it because it's so much fun to sort of go down that psychological rabbit hole with Sarah Sutherland, who plays my daughter Catherine, and she's an incredible actress, and so it's really fun to beat her up mentally and emotionally, and she takes it quite well. Yeah,
we're talking about the character of Selena Meyer on Veep. And another question that I had, and I asked this because I've heard Amy Poehler and Andy Samberg talk about this with their characters on Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Recreation, that it was a very difficult decision to decide. They're workplace comedies, just like Veep, and there's a tough decision when you're creating a character to decide, is this person going to be good at their job and still really funny, or are they going to be incompetent and still really funny?
Yeah.
And what direction do you think you went in with Selena?
Well, I would say that we went in the bad at her job, but not we didn't go at it that way. We went at it this way. Her ambition and her desire to stay alive politically thwarts her. So it gets in the way of her making honest choices, ethical decisions. Not because, I guess you could say, not because she's an unethical person, but because she is so self-obsessed and so, I guess that does make her unethical, so I take that back. But she's so self-obsessed and she's so driven and she's so frightened of not being relevant politically that she cannot see anything clearly. And also, I will say, we've created a situation in which she will blame everybody else before herself. To me, that's hilarious. She's surrounded herself with these idiots that she can just bang around and blame almost entirely for every one of her, shall we say, fumbles. Yeah.
You mentioned your mom a minute ago. Your mom is a teacher.
My mother is actually she's a poet, and she has taught in the past. She's taught poetry and also writing. Yeah.
A very accomplished family, none of whom were in show business.
Correct. My sister's in show business.
And your sister,
Lauren
who you've
Bowles,
worked with.
Yes, with whom I've worked. In fact, even on this season of Veep coming up, she will be on Veep. Yeah, nobody else really in show business in our family.
And what did they think when you said, I'm going to go to Northwestern and I'm going to be a theater major?
Oh, I think they're all in favor of that. I didn't get any pushback. I knew I loved Northwestern when I visited it as an 18-year-old, and I applied early decision and I got in, and it was one of the happiest days of my life as a kid, and it turned out to be the really right decision because a lot has come from that choice.
And then how long were you at Northwestern, and why did you leave?
I was at Northwestern for 3 years. And I left between my junior and senior year because I got a job offer to be on Saturday Night Live. So, see ya, NU.
Yeah, that was not a hard decision, was it?
It was not. No, I didn't even call my parents to ask. I just said, oh yeah, I'm going, sure. Yeah.
I know that the stint on Saturday Night Live was a mixed bag. And also you were so young.
Yeah, I was 21. I didn't know, my ass from a hole in the ground. Yeah.
And then there in New York and in that environment of all environments.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I was very naive and inexperienced, but I grew up quickly and I learned a lot during that time. I did. I really did. It was a very formative time of my life. Looking back on it, it was like going to grad school.
Who were the seniors when you were at Saturday Night Live?
Oh gosh, who were the seniors? Well, I mean, Tim Kazurinsky and was a great friend and a writer, performer on the show, and Jim Downey was there, and Andy Breckman. I mean, there were a lot of great writers, and Mary Gross was there and was and is a very good friend. but it was definitely not easy.
Eddie Murphy was,
and Eddie Murphy was
era.
Yes, that's right. He was a superstar, and Marty Short and Billy Crystal. You know, it was a lot. There were a lot of people who were big stars at the time on the show. Yeah.
What was the for you? What was the best part? What was the worst part?
I'm going to say, I mean, really, in retrospect, the best part is that it gave me a sense, a drive afterwards, a desire to look for, to stick with what I was doing, but to stick with it on my terms. In other words, I was going to try to find jobs that were fundamentally joyful. And if they weren't that, I was not going to bother with this business. So that was quite clear to me. And I guess you could say the worst was sort of the hard knocks I had to get to endure to reach that conclusion, you know, and there were quite a few, you know, there were many tearful days, but that's all right. You know, I came out the other side.
You did fine.
Yeah, I did fine, but it took a while. You know, it took a while.
Well, especially at that age, because I mean, it's first of all, it's a dream come true, and then it's that crashing disappointment, and then you think this is what all adults are like. This is what all jobs are like.
Yeah,
you know, it's a scary thing.
Right. It's also, you know, I will say, it's a fantastic. It's like running a marathon every week doing that show. There's nothing like it on television, in terms of trying to create material live. Nobody does that, you know, except like sports events. Those are live. But I mean, the fact of that and trying to reinvent the wheel week after week after week, I mean, it is houndingly difficult. So I learned how to do that, you know, even if I failed at it, I learned how to do it in a weird way.
Nice job last week.
Thank you.
When you came back.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Nice. And to be honest with you, there'd been a couple of slow weeks.
Yeah, I'd heard about that.
Yeah, it was not. And then you brought it back up to speed.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
What is it? So that was your third time going back?
Third time hosting. Yeah, right.
What's it like to go back? It must be so different now.
It is so different, and it's great. It's like that fantasy you have about going back to high school, and if only you had known what you know now, and if only you could go back with that knowledge too. That's exactly what it's like. So, you know, I know the ropes. I know how it's going to be, and it's thrilling to do the live show. Oh my God in heaven. It's just unbelievable. And of course I had a lot of material, so it's just like, it's being on a rocket ship and you're just like going into space at lightning speed. But I loved it. And Larry David was on the show. He was doing his Bernie thing, and that was really fun. And
you did an Elaine Bennis
thing. I did my Elaine Bennis thing, which was hilarious. Yeah, and I've never done that, actually. So that was sort of, I haven't done that since whenever the show ended, 98, I think.
Yeah. You know what? You looked a lot like you did when you played Elaine Bennis the first time.
A little more wrinkly, but
that's the most important thing.
Yes, how we look.
And it was kind of surprising. Congratulations on that as well.
Thank you very much.
Was that you and Larry David had been, were you there at the same time?
Yes. Larry was on SNL for a year. He was there my last year, 84, 85 year.
Yeah.
And we definitely bonded during that time. He was very unhappy there, and I liked that in him, and we bonded over our unhappiness.
You know what they did to me? You know what they did to me?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Like that.
Right.
Did you have any when you went back? You reunited with the entire cast to do Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh yes.
Yeah, a few years ago. Was there any reluctance to reunite for Seinfeld, or is it one of those things that you completely embrace? Oh,
I completely embrace it because I understood the concept behind it. It was sort of an anti-reunion, which seemed appropriate. It was certainly not sentimental by any stretch of the imagination, and it was kind of reunion. It was reunion not. So that was good.
And you were playing yourselves. reuniting, not the characters again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it seemed very kind of, I don't know if you call that meta or if you call that, I don't know what. It was appropriate.
I would call it meta.
Okay, meta. Appropriately meta.
Appropriately meta. Speaking of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Do you remember getting the call to come do that show?
No, not really. I mean, what I remember is I got these 4 scripts that Larry sent to me. And I remember reading them and thinking, ooh, this is so not like anything on television. You know, it was sort of not written like a sitcom. It wasn't set up, punch, you know? And so I thought, oh, this seems cool. And it's Larry and he's so weird and that feels good.
Yeah. And
then I went in and I met with Jerry and Lair and we hit it off. And then it sort of, but it was very, I'm going to say it was casual, you know? I mean, for instance, NBC had given it a 4-episode order. So it's not like anybody thought, we're on to something huge here. You know what I mean?
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
It was literally 4 episodes.
It's 4
wasn't
episodes, you know? So, and then we shot those 4 episodes, and I remember thinking these shows are great, but they're too stupid to pick it up, you know? Dumb network. Right. But they did.
But it was also the TV industry was so different then in 1990 because actually NBC gave it some time. I mean, somebody there saw the potential.
Yeah. Rick Ludwin is the person who saw the potential. And we kind of got in under the radar, and in a sense. And he is to be credited. So, yeah, it took a couple years for anybody to really start paying attention. And so thank God they hung on to us long enough. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite episode? You just did this thing with your eyes. You hate being asked that question.
No, because I'll tell you, no, it's not that I hate it. It's just that, number one, I have the worst memory. And, I've done a lot of episodes of TV now. Believe me, I'm not complaining. But I think of my brain as like, when you dump information off your hard drive and it's just gone and you can't retrieve it, that's what happens to me with these episodes. So I am telling you, I have been with my children and like Henry will say, hey, Mom, look what episode is on. And I'll come in and we'll start watching and go, oh, my God, what happened in this one?
Right.
I'm not kidding you because it's a lot of episodes of TV. But I mean, I have funny, there are moments, like to be honest, I just remember scenes that were hard to get through for me because I found them so funny. Like the Merv Griffin show episode. I don't know if it was called that or not, but when Kramer gets the Merv Griffin set, it's so stupid. And I almost never got through that. And there's footage of that out there. I mean, I have to say that when we were making that show, we enjoyed it as maybe even more than the public. We were the show's biggest fans. It was really, that's, you can't beat that.
And how did you feel when Jerry decided to end the show? Were you hoping it would go on? Were you ready to go? What was your feeling during that
to
time?
be honest, at the time I was ready to take a break. I had 2 very young kids.
Yeah.
I had a baby and a 5-year-old. And I wanted to go home and just sort of hunker down at home and just have home, period.
Well, that was lucky because that's a great time for you to be able to take some time off and for a thing to end.
Totally. And it felt, Jerry was wiped out, which I totally understand. And it was definitely bittersweet, though. I mean, that night of our last show was a night I will not soon forget. That won't get wiped from my hard drive because it was very emotional. And we used to say the motto of our show was no hugging, no learning, which is true. We were never trying to teach or anything or have a sentimental anything. But in fact, we were very sentimental. And that night when we all sort of bid goodbye was unbelievably wrenching, I have to say. Yeah.
Did you, how closely have you stayed in touch with the cast. Fairly close.
Fairly.
Right?
I mean, it's not like we're getting together on a weekly basis or anything, but when we do get together, it's as if we never left each other.
Yeah,
That's a big history we share.
Yeah, there always seem to be it seemed to be a happy set. Not all sets are nearly as happy.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a happy set. Oh yeah.
What do you think has changed the most? So that was about 20, 25 years ago you were doing that.
God, is it really that long?
It really is that long. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, even your very next show after that. Well, there was Day by Day, but
oh yeah,
there were a lot of
so much television. Jesus.
And it was a while before you had another success. But what has changed the most about television in the last 25 years? When you think about what's changed, what is it?
The landscape is widened. I mean, it's like we're on a new planet because there's so many opportunities for material.
Because Veep would have never existed.
Yeah, right. I mean, Veep might not have existed. I suppose maybe the time was right for Veep right now, but the opportunities for great material are there and and to sort of reinvent different kinds of storytelling, just given the fact that there are so many outlets right now. So that's been the big change.
And I just meant maybe not existed only because networks and even premium networks have had to really push the envelope in order to break through the clutter.
Yes. And also I'm going to say that certainly nowadays there's more opportunity for women than there were 25 years ago in television, not in film, but in television. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. We're going to play a fun game in a minute. But I wanted to ask you about and they'll bleep me out, Steve. The sketch that you did with Amy Schumer and Tina Fey and Patricia Arquette, where they celebrated Julia Louis-Dreyfus's last f***able day.
Yeah.
Were you? I assume that everybody in the room has seen it or heard about it. Were you surprised at the reaction that sketch got?
Yes, I was amazed and pleased.
Yeah.
In fact, that sketch was directed by Nicole Holofcener, who directed this movie I made a couple years ago called Enough Said, and she reached out to me and said that Amy Schumer had this sketch and would I do it, and she described it to me. I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. It's a good feminist, funny idea. And so we did it. We shot it in a day. It was fun.
I watched it again yesterday, and the great, great thing about it is you've just completely embraced it. Like, oh, how great.
I know.
That I don't have to be f***able anymore.
Yeah. Kind of a relief in a way.
Yeah, and then you do gross things and
yeah, right. I know. It was good.
Yeah, there was no sadness to it. It was like, oh, thank goodness.
No, it was a celebration.
So clever.
Yeah, it really was. That's on Amy Schumer and her team, for sure. But I was thrilled to be a part of it. I think, I mean, in the about halfway through making it, I sort of, the more I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute, is this true? It got a little bit, I will admit to you, about halfway through the day, I had a crisis of confidence. But anyway,
I mean, I'm gay,
recovered.
but I'm going to say no.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
So for what it's worth, which is nothing.
Thank you. I'll take whatever I can get.
This is a little game that we like to play.
All right.
Called the Cagle exercise.
Oh, I'm familiar with those.
All you have to do is fill in the blank.
Okay. Oh, God. Is this going to be embarrassing?
No, it's not embarrassing at all.
I'm not smart, by the way, so I'm going to fail if it has to do with...
just answer on it. And you can pass. You can pass on any of them that you don't want.
Great.
Right?
Do you edit this show?
Yes.
Good. Okay, go ahead.
Close friends describe me as what?
Short.
Strangers describe me as...
Really short.
Only I know that I am
5'3".
Thank you. The song that always makes me dance is
Sledgehammer.
the movie I've seen the most times is
Wizard of Oz.
the book I would take to a desert island is
Can it be books?
Yeah. You have 2 or 3?
Um,
or like all of Remembrance of Things Past.
Yeah. All of Edith Wharton's novels.
Oh.
Yeah.
It may be heresy, but blank is overrated.
Kale.
So with you. And quinoa, because quinoa. I think I'm really good at
Jesus Christ. Hold on. Playing cards.
I think I'm really bad at
Losing in playing cards.
I wouldn't be caught dead in a
skydiving, in a skydiving position. Yeah.
I start every day by doing
Meditation.
my greatest extravagance is I mean, you're rich. It's gonna be good. You can pass on that.
Chocolate.
Oh,
boring. That's so
good.
boring. It's such a boring answer.
I asked Ryan Reynolds that, and he goes, "Well, some people would say chocolate, but cocaine." I don't know why that was so funny.
Yeah, I'll take his answer for myself.
The thing about myself I've learned to love is what?
My fat ass. I don't think you can say that on. I don't understand how this works. You say everything gets bleeped here.
No,
so none of this interview is usable.
No, sometimes couple might get bleeped.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But I don't think ass.
All right.
That's fine. Julia.
Okay, fine.
Say that all you want.
All right.
Yeah. I love the smell of
bacon.
I could talk about blank for hours on end.
Myself?
As a child, I dreamed of becoming
Barbra Streisand's best friend.
I can sum up my life in this hashtag.
Pass.
Hashtag pass. Great. We're going to go to the audience.
Oh, good.
Some questions.
Okay.
Here. Gregory, what's your last name? Michelena. Yep.
Cool.
Do you have a question?
Yes. So Selena has a number of one-liner comments throughout the seasons of Veep.
Yeah.
My favorite happens to involve a croissant.
Yeah, it's one of mine, too.
What is your favorite line of Selena's so far?
Well, you might have just... Well, first of all, they're going to have to bleep the whole thing, right?
You can say that.
Oh, we can say it?
Yeah.
Well, I was very... Oh, that particular one. Well, I loved saying that's like using a croissant as a dildo because it doesn't do the job and it makes a fucking mess. It's good, isn't it? You get the visual and it's just bad.
Was there another one that came to mind?
I like calling Jonah Jolly Green Jizz Face. That was fun.
Did you come up with that on the set, or did someone write that? You did.
And I like if men had to get an abortion. I'm gonna butcher this, but I think it was something like if men were in the position to get abortions, they'd be able to get them at ATMs or something to that effect. It wasn't that. Yeah. It was better than the way I just said it.
It was very true, though.
Yeah, I think it is true. As a matter of fact.
Manuel Nash.
Hi, Julia.
Hey.
My wife and I have enjoyed seeing you in shows like Seinfeld, Old Christine, and now Veep. But we also saw you in a movie, Enough Said, you mentioned it before, with James Gandolfini.
Yeah.
You play a much different role. Which role do you like or prefer, and why?
Well, I can't say that I prefer one over the other because they're all quite different. Doing something like Enough Said was a tremendous. God, it was just an amazing thing to take on, that kind of acting, that sort of, for film. And when you're telling that kind of a story, that sort of journey you take with this character, it's just a completely different muscle group than working on something like Veep. And it doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just different. So what I really like is having that challenge. In other words, it's like if you work out just your biceps every day, that's great for your biceps, but then you start to do squats and you start to feel it there. And it's sort of like the same thing with different characters. If you come at it differently, or if it's a different medium, or it's a different person. So I love the challenge of exploring a well-rounded human being.
That's a great movie. Enough Said.
Yeah, it was really fun to do. Yeah.
I mean, it did well. It's like an underrated movie or a lot of people haven't seen it. It's one of those. I'm always recommending it to people.
Yeah, it's good. It's something I'm proud of.
Such a smart
Nicole
movie.
Holofcener is phenomenal.
Christine Bailey.
This kind of dovetails, I guess, off his question. But basically, how do you get into character while you're on a set? Like, do you have a specific process or something that you do that gets you into more of the comedic roles versus the dramatic roles, etc.?
I guess I don't have a sort of a so-called method, except I guess I think a lot and I read the material a lot and sort of pour over the actual material. And then I like to rehearse. And sort of make it my own that way so that it starts to feel natural. It takes a little doing sometimes, You can also discover more things as you do this. And sometimes you can also find problems in the script when you do it. But it's all it's what actors do, I guess, which is I like to rehearse, and rehearse. Having said that, I don't like to rehearse too much because I think it can take a kind of a freshness away. So I can sometimes feel there's a point at which, okay, let's just wait until we get this on film, because I think we'll discover something on the day or in the moment that might feel fresh and unusual.
Do you rehearse with the other actors, or you rehearse with yourself?
I like to rehearse with other actors, yeah. But I need to think about the material a lot beforehand.
We were just talking about a rehearsal a moment ago. One of the things about Veep that was unusual is you guys had a long rehearsal period before shooting the pilot.
Oh yeah, and we have
very
unusual for television, particularly, and we continue to have a rehearsal process, which is just. So it's invaluable. And all of the actors on the show are incredibly adept at improvisation. So those skills, really come to bear on this particular show. And we work, it's a very organic process, and we work hand in hand with the writers to, with the storytelling and with the show is absolutely written, but there's an element of overlap with actors too that I think gives the Veep so much, whatever you call that. We zhuzh it, whatever that means.
Well, it's also the one-liners that people talk about would not exist if it weren't for the rehearsal process, right?
Yeah, and for an incredibly skilled writing staff on top of it. But there's a kind of, on Veep, people talk over each other and moments are sort of filled in. It's very dense. And a lot of that comes out of rehearsing, and a lot of it comes out of, we're very familiar with these characters now. I will admit to you, we don't need as much of rehearsal as we did now 5 years ago, but we are reaping the benefits of the hours and hours that we've put in.
But an actor will come up with a line like "Jolly Green Jizz Face," and then a writer will take that and perfect it.
Correct.
Like
put it in just the right moment in the story.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Karen Mason.
If you had to pick another profession for your career, what would it be?
Well, if there could be a job where somebody would give me money to spend money on myself, I would totally take that job.
That would be a good job.
Wouldn't that be a cool job? What do you call that job?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I'm going to find out.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, that would be the job I might be good at. Spending money. Yeah, it's a good job. I mean, I don't know, but it might be a good job.
Julia, I want to thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. This
doing
was
this
so
with
much
us.
fun.
I want to thank you for a great Saturday Night Live last week. I want to thank you for a great new season of Veep, because when you're invested in a show and you're looking forward to it, and then you get to the new season and it's like, anyway, this is the opposite of that.
Jess, that makes me so happy. You have no idea.
I am really,
I'm very
really
relieved that you have that reaction, and I hope I never disappoint you. I really do.
I do too.
Oh God.
I do too, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. All right, listen, thank you so much. This has been Julia Louis-Dreyfus on Sirius XM Town Hall. This is Jess Cagle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey everybody, don't forget to like this video and leave a comment if you enjoyed it or if you didn't enjoy it. And for more of the Jess Cagle interview, click on the subscribe button down here. We've got plenty of other great videos for you too. Check them out by clicking on one of these links.